Harry, you've previously struggled with your own mental health. Just what actually was it that you suffered with?
Yeah, well, it started probably when I was 16, 17. My own problem was gambling. It obviously affected my mental health quite a lot growing up. From, like I said, from 16 to hit a big point when I signed for Millwall back in I think it was 2016. That was when it sort of got to a point where it was spiraling out of control. So yeah, that was my main problem.
When did you realise that something wasn't quite right and you decided to seek help?
I think now I can always probably honestly say that I always saw there was something wrong. Just didn't want to admit it. Um, Probably a hard thing to admit. Always, if people did ask me, I'd say there was nothing wrong and try and hide it. But I think deep down, looking back, and I always knew that there was an issue there and there was an underlying problem. I think I knew what I needed to get help when I don't know if there was a main turning point, but it was just getting to a point where I didn't know where else to turn. And I remember coming home. I actually suffered with an injury, and I remember training with a fitness coach at the time. And I remember coming home to my mum, and I just broke down and just said, "Listen, I need to go away and get some help." And I think from there on, I spoke to the manager at Millwall at the time, and when was it? I think it was March 2017 or 18. Went into Sport and Chance Clinic, did 5 weeks there, rehab, and yeah, it sort of just changed my life going forward.
And obviously, opening up is tough, and admitting you've got a problem. How hard did you find it to seek that help, or to just open up and tell somebody that you were struggling?
Yes, I'd be lying if I said it was easy. It was the hardest thing ever. It doesn't just affect you; it affects people around you. Affected my relationship at the time. Affected my relationship with my parents. Relationship with friends. So you try and just cover it all up and just keep it to yourself. As the word burden gets used a lot, but you do feel like a bit of a burden if you put your problems onto someone else. So my way of dealing with it for a long time was to try and keep it to myself, and that was ultimately the worst thing to do is to keep it to yourself. And eventually, my advice would be, as cliche as it is, just talking to someone is the best thing you can possibly do, because if you don't talk, you will get into a position where you see a lot of people these days, and I was getting to a point where do you turn to? And my thoughts were going to a bit of an unhealthy place. And luckily I did manage to talk. It's not easy to talk. I'm not going to sit here and say it is easy. It's hard, but I think once you open up that first initial stage, it does become easier step by step.
Yeah, you mentioned it there. You said you'd recommend talking. Is there any sort of advice you'd give someone to, make that step? Because as you said, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you'd recommend, obviously from previous experience, like how to open up to somebody, whether it's your family, your friends?
I think everyone's different. For me, I had to reach breaking point for me to speak, and I know there's people out there now who will probably listen and watch this, and they're probably in the same situation. But if you don't talk and if you don't want to do it, things aren't gonna get easier. And still to this day, I struggle myself, and I have problems, and sometimes I don't talk, and I still have to learn myself. Do you know what? I still need to talk to people, whether it's my mum, my dad, my friends, or the manager, who's brilliant as well. Just anyone. Once you, like people say, a problem. I think what's the saying? A problem.
A problem shared.
Problem shared.
Halved.
Yeah, something along the lines.
That,
but
yeah.
that is true. That is true. And like I said, you've just got to be brave enough to take that initial first step and speak to someone, whoever it is. Just make sure it's someone you can trust and someone who will be there to support you.
And as you say, so it's important to have that support network there. And I suppose once you've opened up once, it must be so much easier when you are possibly struggling in the future. It's a lot easier to say, look, I'm not feeling too good today. Or,
yeah, of course. Like I said myself, I still have days. I still have days myself, 100% that I'm struggling. And I do find I need to speak to someone. Don't get me wrong, it's still not easy. I think that maybe is just the stigma around, especially men these days. I don't think that will ever really go away fully. I think it's getting better slowly, but I think especially as a male to open up, you're seen as you're supposed to be this the dominant figure, and it's not the way it should be. And I think too many people today in this society do feel that way. But obviously, talking on behalf of women and men I just advise you to speak. Honestly, if you don't speak, things won't get better.
We also run the Team Talk programme in schools, which is a programme which aims to teach children about mental health and enable them to become more aware about mental health in society. Just how important do you think that is?
Yeah, I think me growing up as a kid, I didn't have none of that, whether that's in primary school, secondary school, college. There was no even just people coming in and speaking to you about it, not that I can remember anyway. And I think today's society is even more important, as the rates of people with mental health and obviously the suicides and things like that to do with mental health is staggering, really. And it's quite scary when you look at the numbers, that the amount of people that are deciding that's their only option. So I think the younger kids are, and that you can speak to them about it and learn that, do you know what, if you've got a problem, you can speak up, and it's okay. Like people say, it's all right to not be okay. You can get through it, and there is people out there that will help and support you. And the younger the people are, and you can get them on board with it, the better.